Hi there, Dr. Gary here on the road. We sell dental practices nationwide. We are dental practice brokers. I was a dentist for 25 years, now doing the dental practice brokerage for 16. Today's topic is, what a mess. Office manager steals $185,000 from dentist who's trying to sell his dental practice. Wait till you hear this story. Oh boy. Woo. All right. So before we get into that story, these are all true stories. Believe me, I don't have time to make this stuff up. There's too many of them, and it happens all the time. Especially for you guys that have bought or sold a couple practices that, all due respect to you, that think you've heard it all and know it all. The guys that tell me this is not my first rodeo. Yeah, okay. This is for you guys. Okay, so before we get into that, so as you know, we have 10 employees. We're in 25 states. We work 363 days a year. Take off Christmas and Easter. Our number is 201-663-0935. And our websites are dentalpracticeguide.com and nationwidedentalpracticebrokers.com. Everything you're about to hear is for entertainment purposes. It's not business advice or legal advice. Now, if some of you have those large practices, we can help you sell those, possibly to a DSO. If you're grossing over $1 million, $1.5 million or higher, and you have maybe 4 to 5 chairs or more, and willing to stay on and work for a couple years, at least 3 to 5 years minimum. So could be a candidate with the DSOs. Many of them will pay our commission, so often there may be no commission for you. So I think it's a great opportunity for you. So give us a call on that. We can walk you through it. We know who some of the best DSOs are, and we selectively stay away from a few of them. And as you know, one of the largest ones with 300 offices just went under, got taken over by the banks. So you got to be careful, but we can guide you accordingly. So getting into this now, in addition, if we're representing you and your practice sells for over $1 million, that is the practice portion, and with based on certain criteria, like you have, you're going to use a qualified dental attorney, we will often reimburse your legal fees upon successful closing. We've done this many times. So give us a call on that. We can explain that. All right, what happened in this mess? And this is a friggin' mess. This is why you need dental attorneys. This is why everybody that thinks they're a know-it-all because they sold a couple practices and tell me it's not their first rodeo. Give me a break, because I'm doing this 16 years, and not to diminish what you know, 16 years, and this one never happened to me before. Over 200, negotiations, closings, whatever, and this story is a new one to me. Okay, office manager over a series of 3 years steals about $185,000. All right. We have a closing coming up. The buyer is basing their offer on the tax returns. Tax returns don't show the missing $185,000. Seller, week and a half before closing, discovers the $185,000 missing. So essentially, the buyer, and this is about per year, I wasn't over 3 years, stole the money over 3 years, about 185, 175 over 3 years. So you're talking about $500 some odd thousand. Okay, that's going to make a substantial difference. So this practice each year was essentially grossing about $180,000 more than was reflected. It was a very crafty office manager, because they, whoever it was, stole the monies, and there was a lot of cash that went in there. stole the monies from the private patients because the private patients weren't put into the computer system. The private patients' records, which is the record. So the cash comes in, office manager on the ledger of the patient record didn't have a computer system, marks paid, right? So there's no checks and balances. There's no computer and bank statement to check and cross-reference because the money was never there in the first place. Okay? All right, so that's 100, 180, 175 each year over 3 years. Seller is about a week and a half from closing. All of a sudden, buyer and the buyer's bank is requesting all these records. Okay? And some due diligence was done on the charts themselves. Now, a portion of the patient load was fee-for-service, and no record of that money in any computer system because they only kept it in the charts. All right, so there's no trail on it unless you start looking at the records. So the buyer starts checking all the records with due diligence, right, after the closing. The buyers kind of noticed something was strange. For example, a private patient may pay a portion of a crown fee, maybe half, and they record the payment. Then the patient comes in for the crown to be inserted, the other half, right? And the buyer notices discrepancy that the other monies never showed up because the buyer took a look at the bank deposits for that month. It just so happened the records the buyer pulled were private records, that there was no computer record of it. And the buyer noticed because the buyer happened to work with a bunch of fee-for-service patients that they pulled. And they noticed, where's the payment for all these patients? Patient paid the half it down, but they inserted the crown. And the payment for the crown didn't show up anywhere. There's no record of it. Just paid. Shows the account is zero. Okay, so the buyer says, what's going on here? It looks like a discrepancy. Essentially, the practice is grossing more money than the financial records which are in the charts reveal. So innocently, the buyer is saying to the seller, what's going on here? Seller starts cross-referencing everything and said, oh my God, we got a lot of money missing here. They started going over the private record patients that came in the year because they cross-reference it to the scheduling, all right, the scheduling calendar, which is handwritten. They start pulling all the charts. One thing leads to another. And by the way, the office manager rarely, if ever took a vacation. Rarely, if ever, took a vacation. She took the money, told the seller, just give me the money. I'm not going to go on vacation. So this went on for 3 years. There's nobody checking the books. So now the buyer says there's a discrepancy here. The seller sees a discrepancy. Now the seller realizes his practice is grossing $180,000 a year per year more than is reflected on the tax returns. So now he's selling the practice, right, at a discounted gross. Well, that's what the buyer is basing his value on. And you can't blame the buyer. He's going on the tax returns. Tax returns are correct because it's based on the deposits in the bank, but they don't show the cash. Real problem here. Now the buyer says, well, wait a minute now. If I gross $180,000 a year more, don't I deserve more money for my practice sale? Well, initially we say, well, not really. What you've got to now do, we're going to lose the buyer, and you've got to go and redact you got to change your tax returns because you essentially made more. Now, here's the problem with the change. When you change your tax return, you got to pay a penalty and interest on those monies you didn't report before. You're under-reporting, even though it wasn't your fault. And it turns out the office manager confesses and had been saving the money. didn't spend a lot of the money, was still available. Office manager never spent it. Normally they spend the money, they blow the money. But this office manager didn't, because she didn't want to show a change of lifestyle, knew that the doctor was going to be selling the office eventually, figures wait till he sells, and I think she was going to get a little bonus upon the sale. And then she could take all her money and start spending it, whatever, wouldn't see the doctor again, everything would be quiet. But they found out. Now the seller says, my practice is worth more money. And we said, well, yeah, maybe it is worth more money. However, you can't ask the buyer for more money, can't ask the buyer's bank for more money, because you're an office manager. And now they were able to recover most of the money. And I think the spouse or something made up the difference. The office manager spent some of the money, but saved most of it in a safe. So the office manager offers to give the money back, plus the spouse had money. They were able to return all the money to the dentist, the seller. But the seller's saying, well, wait a minute now. My practice is worth more money. What do I do now? You have to refile all your taxes. Pay the penalty. We're talking about $100 and some odd $1,000. More than that, it'd be about 160,000 would be the price difference, or some, no, less than that. But it's, over $100,000 price difference now of what the practice is worth. So this is a real problem, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. And you have all the bankers, all the attorneys involved, and we want this deal to go through because the seller is just wiped out. Can't handle it anymore, has another practice, and is overwhelmed and don't want to lose the buyer. So this is a very challenging situation. We're discussing it now and trying to come up with his attorney, myself, the buyer's attorney, trying to come up with a workable solution to keep everybody happy. The seller's lucky that the office manager confessed, but it's how he wants more money out of the practice. I don't know if this is going to happen. So we got a real problem here. These are the things that happen on a day-to-day basis. We don't make these things up. I don't have time to make them up because it happens so often. And, those of you that think you can work without the professionals, that think they got everything figured out, that your local attorney's going to handle everything. Now, if we didn't have these great attorneys, it'd be a real situation. If we didn't have bankers we knew that were in the field, what a nightmare this would be. You need experienced people. I mean, I'm busy enough, but more than happy to help you. But you need experienced people in this field. You've got to do it. Don't try to do it on your own. Don't try to figure because you're a dentist you got everything figured out. 16 years, this never happened. And I'm still learning. Over 200 things, 200 closings. All right, team, we're out of here. Off we go. Heading down to the beach tomorrow. I'll see you now. Bye.